Welcome back to the channel. I'm Simon Osmo, and I have an incredible episode for you today on the Hurricane podcast. I am talking with Jesse Iwuji, who is one of two African Americans within NASCAR. Now, so much is being said of white privilege right now, so I took this opportunity to ask Jesse that he rose from a D1 college athlete to the US Navy to NASCAR. So what does privilege mean to him? And he gave an incredibly fascinating answer, so stick around to the end to see that. Now, as always, if you get something from the podcast episode, it means so much to me if you like, share, and also comment on the episodes. How do they resonate with you? What do you take away from the episodes? I believe that I get so much out of them, and I'd love to always hear as to what you do. So without further ado, let's just dive straight into this week's conversation with Jesse Iwuji, the NASCAR driver. So Jesse Iwuji, welcome to the Hurricane podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I'm really excited for you to be here, and I was going to give my listeners a little bit of background as to who you are. So you spent 7 years active service in the United States Navy. You transitioned to the reserves where you recently become a lieutenant commander. So well done, congratulations, and thank you for your service there.
Thank you.
But interestingly, though, you are breaking stereotypes. I had to do a lot of research on this, Jesse, but you're only one of two black NASCAR drivers, and maybe you're known as the other guy because Bubba Wallace is very well known. I was telling some friends I'm going to interview like a NASCAR driver, and I said, "Oh, Bubba Wallace." I was like, "No, the other one." So I want to dive into that a little bit in a few moments. But you are obviously a NASCAR driver, and you are a two-time winner of the NASCAR Diversity Award. And I've got to throw it out there that both me and you are from the Igbo descent in Nigeria. So maybe there's lineage. Maybe we're related, Jesse. Let's just say that. I'm related to a NASCAR driver. I can do that.
There you go. We're of the same tribe. So we have the same language and a lot of same customs, a lot of same traditions, all that stuff. So yeah, one people.
Well, yeah. And so I'm really excited to talk to you because, I started off with a bit of a jest saying, you're the other one. But, and I know I've researched enough on social media to understand some of your views around it. But there's a lot of stereotypes about sort of black people in America and across the world. But what fascinates me with you, Jess, is that you're breaking a lot of those stereotypes. And I just want to tell a little bit about my listeners about, at sort of college and growing up, my internet research said that you ran the 60 meters, 100 meters, 200 meters, and 4x100 relay. You were recruited into a Navy academy to play football. So those are the things, if you want to stereotype, if you want to sort of have bias in your mind, those are the things that you might say an African-American plays, but you are now one of two NASCAR drivers, which is really breaking stereotypes. So I just love to hear a little bit about what got you interested in sort of NASCAR outside of sort of sports.
Yeah, so normal stick and ball sports I've loved throughout my whole life, but after I graduated from college, all that stuff was over. I could still do it recreationally, but I couldn't do it professionally anymore. I would say, even college football isn't professional, but it's up there. So I couldn't do that anymore. So I had to find out what's the next big thing for me to do. Like I wasn't going to go play in the NFL or anything like that. So I had always loved cars and I had always loved racing. So naturally I gravitated towards that. And I started doing just little amateur stuff. I was going to open track days with my personal cars and doing these track days where I could drive real fast on a track and do time trial events and things like that. Some little competitions here and there. But from there, I was like, okay, how do I take this to the next level? How do I take it to the highest level possible? How do I become a professional race car driver? So I was sitting in my room one night in January of 2014, and I pulled my whiteboard off the wall. I erased whatever was on it, and I just wrote one big goal, and that was to become a pro driver. And that's where my journey began. And from there, it was trying to figure out, how does a driver even become a race car driver? What do I have to do? What are all the steps? What does it cost? What does it take? All that stuff. So I had to immediately start doing the research and find things. And the one thing I did see a lot was you can't do it unless you come from a wealthy family because it costs a lot of money to get into racing. You can't do it unless you come from a racing family because you don't have the connections. You can't do it because you're black, whatever, all this stupid stuff. I was like, look, I already clearly had the vision in my mind, seeing myself become a professional race car driver. So because I saw myself at the end goal, because I clearly envisioned it, that means the deal is already done. Like I've already completed it sometime in the future. All I have to do from now is step every single day and find new innovative, creative ways to continue to push forward, no matter what comes in front of me, no matter what barriers are there, just continue to fight every single day, stay strong enough, long enough, and I'll eventually get to that vision that I saw, which was me being a pro driver. And that's what I've been doing over the last, 5-6 years now. And I've actually made my way into racing, started working my way up the ranks of NASCAR, started at the lowest level possible in NASCAR in 2015, racing late model stock cars. From there, continue to fight and grind every year to continue to work my way up. Now I'm racing at the national level. I'm about a step or two below Bubba Wallace, who's at the Cup Series, which is the highest level.
The other guy.
Yeah, the other guy. But I'll eventually get there. It's going to take time, a lot of resources, obviously, people, help, support, money, all that stuff. But eventually I'm going to get there. And, for me, the goal and dream is to get there and race full time and do it for quite a few years before I decide to go off to my next big thing, Hollywood.
Well, yeah. And it's interesting because you said something there that I've heard Denzel Washington say once. And I think he said something like, true desire in the heart is God's promise to you that it's already yours. And I think you said something which resonated there, that you're already believing that you can fulfill these steps. And by doing that, you're then going to achieve them. So interesting. So I want to tell you a little bit of a story. A few weeks ago, I went to a garden center. I guess you call it a garden center or nursery here in sort of Minnesota where I live. And my son, youngest son, said to me, he's 7. He said, "Hey, Dad," he said, "you're the only black guy here. Do you realize that?" And I was looking around and thinking, actually, yes, son, you're right. And it was a nice event, but I was the only black guy there. And for me, I hadn't really thought about that until my son drew it to my attention. But for you being within NASCAR, that is a reality, because on record, there's only you and Bubba Wallace. So I'd just love to get your feelings surrounding what's it like being the minority around others in NASCAR.
Yeah, being a minority, usually I try not to look at it, but sometimes it's pretty apparent. I look around and be like, yeah, there's not a lot of me here. On the pit crew side, there's definitely a lot of African Americans who are now joining a lot of pit crews on a lot of teams, because a lot of these athletes are transitioning from college sports to being pit crew members in NASCAR, because it takes agility, strength, speed, hand-eye coordination, all that stuff, which is things that these athletes have. So you're definitely seeing that change on the pit crew side, which is awesome to see. But on the driver's side, it's not a lot of us. There are other African-American drivers in the United States of America. They're not in the national series in NASCAR yet, but I think some of these folks are working towards that and they're wanting to get there. And eventually I think some of them can. It just, once again, it takes a lot of resources, a lot of energy, a lot of effort, grind, networking, and obviously being a decent driver too. That's all part of it.
That helps, yeah.
Yeah. But there's so much outside of it. Unlike other stick and ball sports, like if I'm playing high school football and trying to get to college football and the NFL, there's not a lot of branding I need to do or marketing or anything like that. You really don't got to do any of that stuff. You just got to go play your sport well, and then you'll make it. Well, you're not guaranteed to make it, but you'll have a better shot at making it. Whereas in NASCAR, you can go play your sport well, and that's how you can go be a good driver. But that is not guarantee that you're moving up to the next level. There's a branding side of it, marketing, networking, knowing the right people, getting sponsors, all that stuff, which has nothing to do with your actual ability to drive a race car. Well, sometimes it does, but not always. That's what makes it a little bit difficult in motorsports to continue to move up. It's so much more than driving. You got to know the business aspect of it too.
Yeah, and you mentioned about the business side and the marketing and social media and everything that goes with it. But on the sort of the day-to-day sort of driving side, that's quite often that's what you're judged at. That's sort of the how good is Jesse as a driver is obviously going to be the sort of the main headline news. But being one of 2 African Americans, and obviously you mentioned there's others in sort of lower NASCAR racing. Do you feel pressure that all eyes are on you? What does that feel like?
I don't really feel pressure as far as being like one of 2 African Americans, racing at the top level in NASCAR or racing at the top, the national level in NASCAR. I'm not at the top level yet, but I'm in the national level. I don't feel the pressure as far as being an African American there. Sometimes the fans, you got trolls. There's always going to be trolls with this internet age. There's always people who are going to be like, oh, why haven't you won a race yet? Why haven't you done this and that? Well, I'm still learning a lot, still trying to gain experience. I won't start out because I started super late. Obviously, I'm not going to be the fastest driver out there immediately. If I did, then That would be amazing. But, I still have a lot to learn, and even right now, I'm not racing a full-time season. I'm racing like a part-time season. So I'll race and then I have like 2 months off, then race and 2 months off. So it's really hard to get in the groove each time, but I'm doing what I can to just go out there and finish the races and not be caught up in a bunch of crap and wrecks and things like that. We're trying to bring out good race cars out there so that we don't break down during the race and have issues like that. So I'm just doing what I can right now to gain experience until once we have all the resources in place so I can run full seasons from there. That's when I'll start getting a lot better. And I've seen myself in some of the lower levels get better and better throughout seasons when I've been able to race full seasons. So it just takes time. It's all just a grind. And a lot of people will never understand. And that's okay because they weren't meant to understand and they weren't meant to go where I'm going to go. But for me, I have to understand that it's all part of a process. Stay patient, just keep grinding, keep my head down and just keep moving.
Yeah, and it's interesting you say that. And another thought that came to my mind is about sort of being a pioneer. And I guess, the great Tiger Woods was, and still really is, one of the few African-American or persons of color that sort of dominated the golf world. And I guess with you in motor racing, being so few African Americans, you've got to be considered a pioneer. You're one of the first, and there's something about being the second or the third as opposed to being the first the guy. So I want to take a different angle, not necessarily as to what do your peers within NASCAR think of you, because there's been a lot of publicity about things that happened last year in NASCAR with the noose incident and all this type of stuff. But I'd love to know, when you meet African Americans or people of color and you tell them what you do they have any bias in their minds around him? Well, I was expecting you're a 6'1", 200-pound guy. I thought you're going to say you're going to play football or you're going to race track. I wasn't expecting you to say that you drive in NASCAR. What are the black community feel about you being in NASCAR?
It always comes as a surprise when I tell people. There's been many times where I've been in a conversation with someone I don't know, and they ask me what I do. I'm like, yeah, I'm in the Navy Reserves now. I was active duty for some years. I have a few businesses now that I've started and I run every day. It keeps me pretty busy. And I race in NASCAR. And they just completely don't listen to the I race in NASCAR part because they think I'm joking. I'm not joking. I do, I'm on TV, racing, look it up, so, a lot of times, sometimes it can be tough to get some people to understand that I do race. Some people are like, wait, what? That doesn't happen often. How'd you get into that? And some people are super surprised. Some people love it. Some people are confused. It's definitely different. But I think as more minorities eventually get into motorsports and racing starts showcasing more of the minorities who are in motorsports, I think eventually, we'll get the Black community, the Asian community. Well, a lot of Asians race. There's a lot of people in Asia who race, but for the other communities who don't have a lot of people who race, even the Hispanic community or, all the other communities that just don't have a big representation in racing, it'll be cool once more of us get in, because then you can get all these other communities in who are more intrigued in watching it. And eventually we can get to a point where we're as popular as soccer.
Yeah. Well, you're just being graded by the quality you're driving as opposed to, the minority that you might stand for, perceived minority. But I imagine there's a lot of kids out there, people you meet, must look up and want to emulate what you've done. Because like I said, being one of the few, you are really a pioneer in the sport. So it gives you a great opportunity to really leave a strong legacy. So we need you climbing up the ranks pretty quick to get up there.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, it's a grind. Once again, it takes a lot of resources to make it happen, but we're working every day to try to make that happen.
Yeah, and so your path to there, I know you spent time in, and you're now reserves in the US Navy. You become a lieutenant commander, which is incredible to do. And I know, similar to me, you're of Nigerian descent, but you were born in the US, correct? I've got that right?
Yep. Uh-huh. That's correct.
And so I wanted to move on to the topic. I'm going to get it's not going to get too controversial because I'm not that type of guy, but I want to push it a little bit surrounding this term of privilege and stuff, because I recently interviewed a guy, a black guy from London, who was born with a very rare disability where he was born with no arms and really short legs. But in talking to him, I realized that I was had a very poor upbringing, but I was aware that I was privileged over him. And so I've got to pick up on a few things on you. I stalked your social media because I'm an ex-UK detective after I got to do my research. But I saw there was a proud moment in there that I know that your dad came from Nigeria with $200. I think he was robbed very early on, so had that money stolen from him. Your mum came and she was a housemaid for a while. So very humble, hardworking people. But I see the house that they have now, wherever it is. I'm not going to tell the state, but it's a massive house, and you were right to be proud on there. But I wanted to sort of talk about privilege because I think everyone is privileged to some degree. So, I look as to where your family perhaps started, being very poor, coming from Nigeria, and both your parents have done well and you've been successful. What does privilege mean to you when it's being sort of thrown around right now as sort of white privilege and privilege in society? Part of my belief is that everyone is privileged in some regard over someone else. But seeing that your parents have done so well and you breaking into NASCAR, how do you sort of determine what privilege is in your mind?
Yeah, just like you just said, a lot of people are privileged in a lot of different ways over someone else. So there's always going to be someone who has it better, who started in a better situation, because life, how I see it, is life is a card game. We are all dealt a certain hand. So anyone who's ever played a card game, guess what? When everyone gets dealt their hand, not everyone's hand is equal, right? And God deals us all a certain hand for this card game, because at the end of the day, it all has to work out. It all has to start with a deck of cards and work out. Well, guess what? Your cards might not be as good as this cards, but there is absolutely no rule in the game that states because you started at this certain hand, you are not going to win. There's no rule. You can still find your way to win. Yes, it's going to be more difficult. Yes, this person might have a little bit more of advantage because of the cards that they were dealt. But guess what? There still is no rule that is supposed to stop you. So when people say, "Oh, because this person is more privileged or whatever, that means I'm just not going to win. I'm not going to get to where I want to go. I'm not allowed to get to where I want to go." Blah blah blah, all that stuff. That's not true, because there's many people who have shown time and time again that you can literally start with absolutely nothing and make it to wherever you want to go in life. I mean, my parents came here from Nigeria with not much at all, but they came here with a little bit. I mean, for them to even make it over here, obviously you had to find some kind of money to buy that plane ticket, because that wasn't cheap. But my parents didn't really come from a lot of money. My dad had to, work for many years to save up that money to even get that plane ticket to come over here. But he did what he had to do. He did what was necessary. He was creative and ambitious enough to make it happen. A lot of people have all the desire in the world, but no ambition. And ambition is different than desire. Ambition is when you actually go and find ways to take that desire that's in you and try to execute on something every single day to make the goal a reality. Whereas desire is just you sitting there and dreaming about it. We can all dream all day, but if you don't have that ambitious attitude where you're going after it and trying to make it happen every single day, you're putting in actionable steps, you're putting in energy on a daily basis. That's what's going to allow you to get to that goal. And you might have to do it a lot more than other people because you were dealt a hand that maybe wasn't as equal as others. Guess what? It's okay. You have to start from somewhere. Even for me, getting into racing and doing what I'm doing, it's been difficult because, I didn't come from a racing family. I didn't come from a lot of money. I didn't come from all that stuff. So I had to figure it out on my way, and it was difficult. So I can sit here and say, oh man, my life was hard making it up the ranks, but my life definitely was a lot better than people who, might be on the streets in India with absolutely nothing, making a penny a day, type thing. Like there's people who drink water off the ground, like in certain places. I mean, like I can't even sit here and complain about anything because how could anyone in this country complain about everything? Even if you're homeless, how could you complain when there's other people in even worse conditions who have absolutely nothing? There's people who come from that and can still make it over here. They just find some way. So it's all about, are you going to be ambitious? Don't confuse movement with progress, right? Like a lot of people are going to do a million things in a day and it doesn't actually go anywhere. Like you need the million things you do need to be a million things that are trying to step forward, and not just a million things just to say you did a million things. Don't confuse movement with progress, ambition over desire, and just stay strong enough. Push every single day. Like you'll get to where you want to go.
And it's interesting that you say that, because a lot of these things are mindset, aren't they? Like I said, I have to say that when I moved from England to America, I live in a nice house. I've got multiple cars now. The world sees me as successful. But anytime a person comes around making a delivery, I feel compelled, Jesse, to say to them, I want to tell you, I didn't start here. There's a lot of hard work and effort that gets there. And it really is a sort of mindset to success is, not seeing yourself as a victim, like you say, looking forward. Don't confuse movement with progress. I really like that. And so when you reflect on yourself, what would you say is your one sort of personality trait which has really helped you get so far ahead, which makes you successful? What do you attribute that to?
Yeah, quite a few things. Like you just said, one of those things is mindset. Once I got my mindset into the place that it's at right now, this is what allowed me to really, really start excelling. Because at the end of the day, I can give people a 10-step process on how to succeed at whatever they're doing. I can be like, oh yeah, if you want to start a business, get this, get that, start this, do that, do this, open this up, boom, 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 boom. I can give you those steps, and these are steps to, get something somewhat going. But at the end of the day, nothing matters if you don't have the right mindset. Like, mindset is the whole platter. If you don't have the mindset, when the wind starts blowing, when the earthquakes start shaking, when fires start happening, everything that you're trying to build is going to burn down, and you're never going to know how to build it back up. You got to get your mindset in the right place. Your mindset has to be in a place where you're able to clearly see your vision of where you're supposed to go, what you're supposed to be, what you're supposed to accomplish, and you get and how it's supposed to look like when you get there. You got to have that clear vision. After you have that clear vision, you have to be the type of person who's willing to execute every single day, to put actionable steps towards it every day with an insane belief that you are going to make it happen. As you're going through all that stuff, you're going to be hit with a lot of bad stuff's going to happen. But you have that faith even when it's pitch black, that the light is still there. You got to have that faith that it's always going to be still there because you originally had that clear vision. And as you're going through, as you're trying to push through and it's getting dark, you got to remember that even in the darkest point of the night, the sun will still rise. It still will come up the next day. You got to keep pushing. And along the way, as people are reaching out for help, those who you're inspiring, those who you're motivating by your journey, continue to help those, because if you help those people achieve their dreams, your dreams will come true too. As long as you keep doing this stuff, you never quit, you will get to the end. And everything I just said right there is the type of mindset you got to be in to succeed in anything in life. If you don't have your mindset in that place, you will not accomplish anything. It doesn't matter how many books you read. It doesn't matter how many, seminars you go to, conferences, all that stuff, because I see all these like gurus out there being like, oh yeah, come to my conference and I'll give you the 5 steps to whatever. And I'm like, dude, yeah, you're going to give them those steps, but none of them are going to accomplish it because you didn't teach them what was truly important. And that was a mindset. Once you get their mindset in the right place, they will be able to do anything in life. But that's how these people keep selling stuff, because they keep selling this dream without the actual important part.
Well, and it is very true, because you're right. I mean, if you, I can give you a book and I can teach you it, but if you don't really truly want to learn it, if you're not truly committed, you're not going to put everything into it. I mean, it's everything in life is effort. There is, even most people that have wealth would generally say to you that, just to build the wealth isn't easy, or to maintain it is difficult. Everything is effort. And in today's society, I guess everyone is looking for that shortcut. I want to be in NASCAR. Okay, can you give me a car tomorrow? Well, as you said, there's a lot of stumbling blocks and a lot of steps to get in there. So I guess just as we sort of start to wrap up, listening to you talk, who have been some of the bigger influences in your life then?
A lot of influences throughout my whole life. I have a friend that I served with on my last ship, Ryan Hogan, who he's once we got off the ship, he was able to build a business to like a $50 million business. And he taught me a lot when it came to business stuff, on how to get things going and how to think in different ways. I listen to a lot of motivational speakers, but some of my favorite ones are Les Brown, Eric Thomas, Gary Vee, also Robert Kiyosaki, all those folks right there. I've been able to take a lot of different nuggets from them, apply it to what I'm doing now in life, help me get my mindset in the right place. And that's what's helped me succeed in everything I've been able to do. And a lot of stuff that those folks teach, I already internally had. I just didn't realize that that's what was happening, which helped me succeed earlier in life and other things. And then once I understood that that's what it was, then I really started putting energy towards all those different concepts, because I'm like, oh, wow, like it what I think about, I bring about. So let me use my mind to just attract everything into my life that I want to attract. Like, if I need to go make $1 million, I can create that in my mind and attract it to me. I know it sounds crazy and it sounds like sorcery or whatever, but it's not. It's a real
Have you
thing.
ever read the book As a Man Thinketh by James Allen?
You know what? I listen to, actually, I don't like reading. I like listening to audiobooks. So
You're a man.
listen.
I mean, we don't like reading.
Yeah.
There's lots of things we're not naturally good at, you know.
Yeah, I can't, for me to sit there and I don't like it. So I won't, I go off into different worlds because my mind is a very, very creative place and it's always moving and always thinking of different things. So it's hard for me to sit, but if I can just listen to it, then I can like multitask and do a lot of things at once. Like when I work out, I typically will listen to stuff. So I have listened to that. Yeah, it was very, very interesting. And I listened to it for the reason of I wanted to just reconfirm to myself that, what you think about, you bring about.
Yeah, and I talk to a lot of people, and the focus of the podcast is adversity, positive mindset, or found their purpose in life. And one of the commonalities that I always see on every episode is that person that has that self-learning desire and to change, and it's ongoing. It's never, I've read this book, okay, so I'm done now, or I've listened to this audio podcast or audio book in your case, I'm done now. It's that constant desire to do better and grow in themselves. So it's fascinating you saying. I guess I just got one last question before we wrap up. I know because your agent told me off and said you got 30 minutes, so I want to respect your time here, Jesse. But so when you look back as to what you've achieved so far from the US Navy to your sports to now being in NASCAR, is there anything that you look back on and think, I wish I could go back and do that differently?
It's not really a lot at all. I think everything happened the way it was supposed to happen. And I'm glad it all happened the way it did, because that's what allowed me to get to where I'm at right now. So I could not change anything. I wouldn't want to change anything. The only thing I would probably want to change is, rewind back to probably 2013 or so. I would have put $1,000 in Bitcoin. That's the only thing I would have done different.
Yeah. Well, I've got a friend of mine, Spencer. He lives in China, but he's over in Bali right now. He's big on Bitcoin. He got a YouTube channel and stuff. But I don't understand any of that. But he's like, Simon, you've got to keep putting money over here. But yeah, we'll see where that all ends. I like to be able to feel and see things for my investments. I'm a bricks and mortar type guy.
Yeah.
But Jesse, hey, it's been a honor and a privilege to talk to you and to get to know you and learn a little bit about your journey and some of the things that sort of resonate with you. So very appreciative of your time. I'll post all your social media within the podcast so people know where to find you. But any closing comments from yourself?
Yeah, no, I think we hit a lot of great points for those out there going after goals and dreams. One, don't let society or the media or whatever tell you what you're not or what you can do, what you can't do, all that stuff. At the end of the day, like Les Brown says, never let someone's opinion of you become your reality. And that should lead your life right there. When you understand that and you can take that on board, you'll be very powerful and you'll be able to use your mind to attract whatever you want into your life through grind, effort, faith, and just this insane belief that anything that you put your mind to is possible.
Yeah, and I think, you being in a very heavily dominated white sport, I think it really shows to people that you can achieve an awful lot if you put your heart, mind, and soul into it. So I wish you every success. Continue to keep climbing up the ranks of NASCAR, and I look for hearing your name one day on the top spot of the podium. So, Jesse Iwuji, thank you for joining me on the Who I Became podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining the Who I Became podcast. To help spread this inspiring story, be sure to share it with your friends, hit the like button, and of course subscribe to our channel so you won't miss out on any future episodes. We'd also love to hear how this story impacted you, so leave a comment on whatever platform you're watching us from. To learn more about this episode, our guests, or Simon, head over to the Simon Osimo /podcast and sign up to receive the latest information delivered straight to your inbox. Once again, thank you for joining us for the Who I Became podcast.